What's happening, y'all? Welcome inside the Fantasy Stock Exchange. Danny and Bush coming at you with Dynasty Decisions, episode 71. You guys know what we do around here. We break down your Dynasty teams, all of the decisions that you need to make, whether it's trades, rookie picks, rebuilding, contending, all that stuff will be covered in today's video. Check out the Patreon to get access to these videos. First dibs goes to our patron members. You can submit your teams down below in the email in the description. We, of course, put first priority to our patron members, so specify if you are one in said email. If not, we'll get to your team eventually. We do have some free teams that we're covering in today's video for those of you guys that were curious. So as always, if you enjoy, leave a like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Danny, how you doing today?
Doing well, doing well. And yeah, you guys would have saw yesterday's episode. Today, we're doing that part 2, if you will. We're going to try to keep these as consistent as possible throughout the offseason. Obviously, in season, like we've kind of said, it's tough to get these out consistently, but we know how much you guys enjoy them. We enjoy making them. So, whether it's a once a week, twice a week, whatever the case may be, we'll try to get these out to you guys as consistently as possible.
Yeah, for sure. So we're going to waste no time here. We're going to get right into the first team. But before we do, let's hit the intro. Okay, so the first team comes from Collin, who is a patron member. You guys can see the team on the screen there. 12-team, 1-quarterback league. Dak Prescott, Trey Lance is his main guys there. Javonte Williams, Cam Akers, Elijah Mitchell, Tyler Algier at running back. Traylon Burks, DJ Moore, Calvin Ridley, Michael Gallup, etc. at wide receiver. Not a huge tight end core to speak of. Noah Fant, Robert Tonyan there, but he does have the 101 this year, 107, 201. He has 4 firsts in 2024, as well as the rest of his picks by the looks of it. So he started a mid-season rebuild after his aging team started to get injured. I'm assuming he had, guys like Cooper Kupp or whoever would have gotten injured. Targeting 2024 as his realistic time to be back in true championship contention. I would say that's probably a decent evaluation given where your first round picks are and some of the pieces that you have on your team. A question we're going to get a lot. I'm sure everybody in possession of the 101 would like to know, do I consider offers for 101 or do I just take Bijan Robinson? And if so, what does it take to get it?
Well, I'll tell you right now, if you do decide to take Bijan Robinson, this is a suitable roster to be able to do so. So if you wanted Bijan, you're not getting the adequate, offers on the table. I do think this is a worthwhile roster to be able to take Bijan because I do think that you can compete, maybe not, to championship level this year, but at least, compete and get yourself a little house money year. So I wouldn't mind taking Bijan with this team, but of course, we're always doing our due diligence. If you're on the clock at 101 and somebody's able to give you, a grandfather type of roster where, maybe they're offering you 3 mid-projected 2024 first or 3 random 2024 first. And you're thinking, oh, you know what? Like, as much as I like Bijan, I still have Javonte and Akers. I can completely monopolize next year's class. Maybe somebody's just desperate for a superstar player and they really need Bijan. That is the type of, area that you can capitalize on. But realistically, like, unless somebody's offering, that type of grandfather package, you can just take Bijan. You can roll in your merry way.
Yeah, especially in 1-quarterback formats, man, I'm more likely to just hold Bijan because, we know the second he gets drafted, he will be a top 3, top 5 pick at the absolute worst in dynasty startups and may, by the midseason portion of his rookie year, probably be the 101 in 1-quarterback formats. So, yeah, Bijan Robinson, he fits this team. You probably can't compete year one, like Danny said. It's probably a house money year. Your other picks, 107, you should be able to get a solid wide receiver prospect, maybe another running back prospect with that pick. 201, given your tight end core, Michael Mayer makes a ton of sense with that pick. Maybe you even have to pick him a little earlier than that if you wanted to trade down from 107 and get like the 110 or something. I think Mayer would definitely be a big-time target of mine with this team, given your winning window that you're looking towards 2024. I think Mayer will probably be a consensus top 6 tight end the second he's drafted and could end up being the dynasty tight end too by week 3 of his rookie season. If we see anything right away, he can really, really ascend in value given what he's shown at the college level. He has a couple like micro player take related questions after this where he says, what would you be looking to do with Calvin Ridley? Would you trade him before the start of next season or closer to the start of next season, assuming you get some hype and when reinstatement, of course, becomes official for him? What would you be expecting from a much improved Jags offense? If Calvin Ridley is on the field, ready to go for the Jags offense, and they don't add anybody really of note, they go into the season with Kirk, Calvin Ridley, Zay Jones, maybe they bring back Evan Ingram on like a 2-year deal or something. I can expect Calvin Ridley to probably be a 4th-round redraft pick, which means he's probably going to have, low-end first-round, high-end second-round type of trade value in terms of rookie picks.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that as well. Calvin Ridley's the type of guy that, he's going to keep appreciating, especially, if he goes out in the first few weeks of the season and he's averaging like 85 yards per game. It looks like he's kind of gotten his Stephon Diggs-esque move, obviously moving from his situation over there in Atlanta to Jacksonville, young ascending quarterback with Trevor Lawrence. Maybe he becomes, a 1,400, 1,500 receiver. And as we know, compared to his cost, what he was last year, compared to his cost, what he was even earlier this offseason, you're getting a lot of value there with Ridley. So, I don't even mind holding them because I do think that this is a team that you can realistically make a very, very good push for in 2024. Getting that type of player, though, you probably only paid, late second type of equatable value for him when you made your move for him. And now, he's paying off.
Yeah, and from a redraft perspective, we could be talking about like a guy that can ascend to a top 5 redraft wide receiver. We saw him have a top 5 season in Atlanta before he was suspended. And when he got suspended or left the team, we saw that, he was like a positive regression candidate, right? He was the guy that was still getting all the targets. It just, the touchdowns and the big plays weren't happening. Now moving to Trevor Lawrence, a much better quarterback than he's ever played with. Definitely a great situation. I think he's almost guaranteed. He's one of the few assets in Dynasty that I can say with certainty when you were able to acquire him a couple, months ago before he was released off suspension, he was guaranteed to go up in value. You don't get that very often. And I know for a fact that Calvin Ridley was guaranteed, regardless before he even went to Jacksonville. I think that was the case as well. So, couple other things here. He says, given the improvement at the end of the season, what should I do with Cam Akers? Should I try and sell him, wait for preseason buzz, hope he continues playing well into next year, maybe move him at the deadline, or should I hold? I think Akers is really tough. It's going to depend on how your league views him, because if your league is very reactive, then they probably view Cam Akers as a great buy low or something. They think they should buy into him. He's a young running back attached to an offense that should be improved next year with Stafford and Kupp and all these guys coming back. I don't think that most leagues view Cam Akers that way, though. So for me, I would probably hold him until a selling window presents itself. So maybe we get, word that Matthew Stafford is going to be healthy, or maybe we get, it takes all the way up until after the NFL draft and the Rams don't really add anybody significant at running back. It's really tough to know what to do with Cam Akers at this point in time. For now, we know that the guy looks like he's at least coming back to full strength from a health perspective.
Yeah, no, exactly. He's, like Corey said, a very volatile piece right now. We don't exactly know. We can pretty much sum up the overall macro market in terms of where he's going to be on keep trade cut, but he's the type of player that, dependent on what your league market is kind of dictating where his price is at, it's all over the place. So I agree. Depending on how you feel, if people are reactionary, they're willing to give you early 2 or better type of price right now, I'm willing to sell. But they're only willing to offer, an early 3rd round pick, which some leagues may, not want to take on that risk for Cam Akers, I don't even mind just holding him. And like you kind of said, seeing what the preseason buzz would be.
Yeah, and then final couple players he talks about here, DJ Moore. Generally speaking, I'm waiting to see what the Carolina Panthers do at quarterback, and then I'm probably going to shop him. That's just my general opinion on DJ Moore. Michael Gallup is probably the opposite case. I'm more likely to buy him because, he was, first year off the ACL tear. He wasn't really himself. Should be at least more valuable going forward than he was this year. Elijah Mitchell, I think, is just a good, zero RB depth piece to have on any Dynasty roster. If you're competing, if you're rebuilding, I think he's a fine hold right now, unless the Christian McCaffrey owner wants to double condiment and go out and pay a king's ransom early second round pick or something for Elijah Mitchell. And then Javonte Williams, you kind of just have to let come back from the injury, because you can't really sell him right now because you're probably not going to get adequate value. And given your situation, you can wait for him to come back as well.
Yep. No, I agree. Overall, I think you're in a good spot. Obviously, you could take Bijan if no adequate offer, but if somebody's willing to offer you a grandfather, I wouldn't be opposed to that too. You're very fluid with this team. There's no real needs, just building out the depth and hoping, some of your players, whether it's Bijan, whether it's, some of those picks in 2024, end up developing into your true cornerstone assets. Cause I do think the framework here is one of a team that could easily contend within the next couple of years.
Yeah, absolutely. So we can move on to the next team here, which is from Austin. 10 teams, Superflex, tight end premium league. Josh Allen and Joe Burrow. That's a pretty stable quarterback core, if I do say so myself. Jonathan Taylor, David Montgomery, Tyler Algier. A lot of Tyler Algier so far. Jamar Chase, Stephon Diggs, Michael Pittman, DJ Chark, etc. Kadarius Toney down there as well, wide receiver. Darren Waller with Greg Dulcich. I love that pairing. If you have Kittle or Waller or Kelsey, having Greg Dulcich or Pat Freiermuth as your second tight end is one of my favorite ways to build out a long-term tight end core, especially in a tight end premium league like this. He also has the 105, the 106, and the 108 in this year's class. Does not have any picks in 2024, has all of his 2025 picks. So he said this is a win now team. He went 8-6 this year and lost in the first round of the playoffs said, would like your input on how to go about utilizing these picks. Should he draft players? Should he trade them away for, more veterans to help him with his contending window, or a mix of both?
This is a really interesting team, I would say. Realistically, you got your main anchor running back with Jonathan Taylor, a couple nice depth pieces, especially, maybe some upside there with Tyler Algier if they don't add a running back. But I would say maybe getting one more established, Jahmyr Gibbs type, if he is able to follow 105, I think would be your best bet. In your spot, other than that, though, you take Jahmyr Gibbs. Those other two picks, whether you trade down, whatever the case may be, maybe you trade into 2024. But if you do stick and pick at 106 and 108, I do think you pretty much got to label those for a couple wide receivers. Because I do think, Chase, Diggs, and Pittman is a very, very strong starting core. But I do think, especially given two flex spots for wide receivers you can start on a weekly basis, I would probably want about 5 names that I'm comfortable with on a week in to week out basis if I'm going to, fully put my chips in the middle and try to contend.
Yeah, and I like the idea of injecting some youth into that core too,
Yeah.
because behind Chase and Pittman, there's nobody long-term stability-wise that you trust. Maybe Kadarius Toney turns into something. We know he's talented, but he's kind of a knucklehead. So it's a questionable wide receiver core, at least from a long-term perspective. So injecting at least one guy would definitely make a ton of sense. If you're able to get, let's say Jordan Addison and JSN at 105 and 106, maybe at the 108, you grab Zach Charbonnet to help fill out your running back core. That would make some sense. It also, of course, we're not going to rule out if people are willing to give you like DeAndre Swift for the 108, that would also help your team out a ton as well. So you do have a lot of flexibility, and I think that's kind of where your question stems from, where you say, should I draft players? Should I trade these picks away? Should I do a mix of both? Really all depends. Be active on the trade market. See what you can get veteran-wise, because you are in a winning window. And if you can get, Javonte Williams for the 108, or a DeAndre Swift for the 108, or maybe somebody's not sold on Travis Etienne from what they saw, and you can get the 106 shipped off for Travis Etienne or something, that would make a ton of sense. But realistically, all you really have to do is spend these picks, worst case scenario, and the rest of your roster is good enough that you can still contend. You have 2 absolute stud quarterbacks. You have 2 absolute stud wide receivers with another good one in Michael Pittman. You have an absolute stud running back. And a tight end premium, you should have an advantage with Darren Waller, Greg Dulcich, and Evan Ingram and Gerald Everett, some mix of those players at that position. We can rattle off his trades real quick. It looks like traded away Hassan Haskins for 2/3.
Easy.
I mean, I would have done that for 1/3. That's an easy move to make. He got the 108 in exchange for Alvin Kamara, another easy move to make. You'd be hard-pressed to get any kind of first-round capital for Alvin Kamara at this point in time. He got the 105 in Tyler Algier for Daniel Jones, Zay Jones, Kylan Granson, and the 304. I'd probably rather have the 105 than that whole package combined, let alone you get a solid depth piece in Tyler Algier. And then 2023, he got the 106 for a 2024 first, 205 and 305. So it looks like, I don't know if you traded away your own first and then some mid-round picks just to secure another pick in this class. Seemed a bit panicky of a move, in my opinion, just because it looks like you're like, oh man, I don't have a lot of depth. I need to get another stud player in this class. And that could definitely work out. I mean, your first should be mid to late at the very, lowest end, hopefully really late on the high end. And if you end up getting, a big hit Jordan Addison added to this team and he becomes a top 15 dynasty wide receiver for you, I think that's a worthwhile trade to make. But you also could have just spent that 205 on a depth running back or a depth wide receiver, spend that 305 on a depth dart throw running back, and still have a little bit more of a future to cling to in 2024. I don't think it was a bad move by any means, but I might have waited until at least post-draft to know what kind of tier breaks you're getting into.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that though. Overall, like Corey kind of said, like we kind of said throughout this analysis, you have a lot of fluidity with this team. Realistically, every single one of those picks, just look at, the value bundles that you can get in return. Like if somebody's willing to overpay for that spot, you can trade it away. If somebody's not, coming up to the table, then just stick and pick. Not really much analysis here because I just genuinely feel like all options are on the table with this team and with these draft picks that you have.
Yeah, exactly. It's a good spot to be in when we don't really know what to do. You kind of just have a lot of options available to you. So another team that we're going to talk about here is Cody's team, who is the last, I believe, patron submission of the video. 12 teams, Superflex PPR, 6-point per passing touchdown. So very, very high value to the quarterback position. Justin Fields is his main guy there. He has Goff, Tannehill, Brock Purdy, and Jordan Love, who are, solid depth pieces. You'd ideally want a better quarterback too there, but not bad. Austin Eckler, Alvin Kamara, J.K. Dobbins, Cam Akers, James Conner at running back, Devontae Adams, Deebo Samuel, DJ Moore, Deontay Johnson, Tyler Lockett at wide receiver, Greg Dulcich, and a couple other guys there at tight end. So for the most part, looks like mainly a win now type of roster. But the nice thing is he does have the 102 in this class, so he can inject a solid piece, Jahmyr Gibbs, or maybe another quarterback. Probably Bryce Young would make a ton of sense for this team. 201 and 202, you should be able to get some good depth pieces there. Maybe even Michael Mayer to add to that tight end core. 208, another pick there as well. Does not have his first rounder in 2024, but overall, I think this team is in pretty decent shape. He actually said he won the championship in this league, and he has a good opportunity to add some young pieces to this squad, and he's looking for advice. So his main concerns are the aging running backs, Austin Eckler and Alvin Kamara, which I'm sure we're going to bring up. And then also tight end 1, which I kind of alluded to with the Michael Mayer talk there as well. So he said he wants to try and compete again this year, but he does not have his own 2024 first. He went all in with it and probably shouldn't have, even though he won. Kamara didn't help that much. So it sounds like he sold his own 2024 first for Alvin Kamara, which probably was not a wise move even at the time, given what Alvin Kamara was giving you. I think as a general rule, the only time I want to sell my future first for a competitive piece is for a guy that is consistently producing from a redraft perspective. I know like it's fun to buy low from a dynasty perspective on redraft buy lows, but it is kind of dangerous if that redraft piece that you're buying low on doesn't actually give you production, because then you kind of sunk that thought process behind buying a productive player when they're not actually productive.
Yeah, no, exactly. With Alvin Kamara, it was kind of like, buying on the reputation rather than what he was actually giving you. We kind of like realized by week 6, week 7 at the latest that it just wasn't going to be Alvin Kamara's year. We could point to the schedule. We could point, positive regression in the workload, but he just wasn't playing like that same player. The situation is clearly deteriorated, and now you're dealing with a possible suspension entering the 2023 season. I think you might be hard pressed to get, a mid 2+ type of return for Alvin Kamara at this point.
Yeah, and I'm seeing a lot of people say that he's a buy low candidate. I'm kind of hoping that continues, because I have Alvin Kamara in a league, and it's our listener dynasty league, and I would actually like to shop the guy, but I don't think anybody's going to give me shit for him, and I'm still in a winning window, so I might just be screwed and have to hold the guy. So, yeah, tough scene if you have Alvin Kamara. I mean, you got to try and shop him. You don't know what you're going to get. If the mid 2 is all you're getting offered, then I would probably hold him, considering you're in a winning window. But if anybody offers you like even a 2025 first, I would probably take for Alvin Kamara, or a 2024 first to recoup from another contender would make a lot of sense. We can rattle off some of these trades here that he made to help get his team into a good spot, though. He sent away James Robinson for the 208, Kenneth Gainwell, and the 408. I'm assuming this was probably around the time that James Robinson was producing for the Jags, or maybe when he got traded to the Jets or something. Pretty decent return for James Robinson there. Pretty good trade. He got Tyler Lockett, again, in a winning window for Allen Robinson, Tutu Atwell, in the 312. I mean, at the time, that might have been considered a relatively fair trade, because Allen Robinson could have been, more highly thought of from a redraft perspective. But I love that move, transitioning maybe after like the week 1 or week 2 games where Allen Robinson wasn't producing at the highest level. Sent away Melvin Gordon for Cam Akers. I think that was just a no-brainer move. If you're going to take a middling running back, at least give me a young middling running back.
Yeah, I was kind of grimacing because the next move obviously hasn't like fully material. I think it's fine on face value, but if you ended up buying Kamara because you sold Ramondre, looking back, like if you could just net off both of those moves, I would have just rather kept Ramondre and then kept that 2024 first.
Yeah, so he sold Singletary, Ramondre in the 312 for Deontay Johnson in the 201. At face value, I don't think this is a bad trade, because, I mean, Deontay in the 201, those are, like, even those two assets just by themselves are about comparable. Like, I think that's about what Deontay is worth. Yeah. And Ramondre Stevenson probably worth about a mid-first right now, and Singletary in the 312 are not all that valuable. So I think that's a relatively decent move to make. But like Danny said, if you could have just held Ramondre in your own 2024 first, you would have much rather preferred that package. And this is the trade that he's kind of referring to. 2024 first, Fournette, Knox, and AJ Dillon. Again, AJ Dillon, another guy that probably would have given you better production than Alvin Kamara and would have been younger with more upside in the long term. But you did get Greg Dulcich out of it, which is definitely helpful. You got the 202 and you got a third in the 501. So the 202 is definitely helpful, because that can help you replenish a young running back as well. So overall, could have been worse, but I think if you just held Ramondre, it would have been much better, and not made this trade, maybe trade for a different tight end or something. And then he sold Matthew Stafford for Jared Goff. I'm assuming this was after Jared Goff was starting to play well and Matthew Stafford got hurt.
Yeah, I mean, it helped you win the championship. You clearly said you won the championship. And realistically, in startups right now, like, Jared Goff and Matthew Stafford are probably relatively, similar priced in terms of startups.
I would say that most people would take Jared Goff over Matthew Stafford. I don't know if that's exactly the right take. I really don't have a whole, firm
it's tricky.
stance on Matthew Stafford right now, because he is really tough to evaluate from like a health perspective. But if he's back on the field performing for the Rams offense again with Sean McVay at the helm and Cooper Kupp is healthy and maybe they add some pieces or something like that, Matthew Stafford could very easily be a borderline top 12 quarterback again next year that could be available very cheap at this point in time.
Yeah, no, I agree there. Overall, I mean, your team's still clearly in a winning window. What are you trying to do with that 102? Because I do think maybe you attach the 102 to, Goff or Tannehill maybe, and you go after, maybe that gets you Lamar Jackson.
So the 102 is interesting because, I mean, you could also just stick and pick and take Bryce Young. That's definitely a possibility.
Fine. Yes.
The other thing that you could do is try and offload some of these older running backs in a package deal to get a quarterback or to get maybe even another running back. Like you could maybe offload Alvin Kamara in the 102 for Jonathan Taylor right now. And that would make some sense for your team. Obviously, you'd probably prefer a quarterback because it's a more long-term position. But I also don't think it'd be a terrible idea, instead of spending the 102 on Gibbs or something, or Bryce Young, to go after another stud player either at wide receiver, running back, or tight end.
I would take Bryce Young over Jonathan Taylor straight up right now.
I would as well. I'm just saying, if it's not like, if you're dead set on getting rid of Kamara, I don't know. It's tough. You'd have to put together a package deal. I think to go after a better quarterback could also be like a 3-for-1. Like if somebody is in a competitive window and they want to give you, a solid running back piece or a solid quarterback piece in exchange for Jared Goff plus Alvin Kamara plus Tyler Lockett, because they're in a competitive window, you might be able to get away with something like that. But again, that's all going to come with work in the market. I think you're in a good spot overall. Like even if you had to go into the season with Justin Fields, Jared Goff, Ryan Tannehill, you'd be fine. You'd be okay. Like I'm actually in a dynasty league where I have almost exactly the same quarterback core, and in our listener league, and I think you'd be fine. But you could add Bryce Young to this team and be a lot better off as well.
Yeah, I the name, I think I've been saying it for a couple minutes. Lamar Jackson's the name I'm looking for. Even if it's Goff, Kamara, and the 102, and that gets you Lamar Jackson, I'm more than comfortable paying that. Heck, maybe
get Purdy off your team. Purdy, everyone's excited about Purdy. Purdy's a sell high right now. If you got Purdy, the 102, and Alvin Kamara, maybe you have to throw in Lockett to get it done to get Lamar Jackson. That would also make some sense too.
Yep. No, I agree. Overall, you're in a good spot. Clearly trying to bounce it back. A couple moves that you can make realistically to make this team an absolute juggernaut. You already said a receiver. Maybe you lose one running back, but you'll still have plenty of depth there. And then, hopefully, a guy like Greg Dulcich. But Corey said maybe 201, 202. You're looking at a guy like Michael Mayer. Overall, great spot. I think we can move on to the next team. That is going to be from Caleb. You guys see it on the screen right now. 12-team Dynasty Superflex PPR tight end premium, 6-point passing touchdown type of league. You got a quarterback, Deshaun Watson, Trey Lance, etc. there. Running backs, the FSC special, the Caleb Huntley, DJ Dallas, Kenny Ngwangu, Travis Homer, and then the classic big old tone setter himself, Benny Snell. Big shout out there. I could already tell you're watching the content. Wide receiver, absolutely loaded to the rim. CeeDee Lamb, Chris Olave, Drake London, JMO, Trey. My Lord, that is some depth. And then at tight end, you got some young upside there with McBride, Auden, in particular there, along with a full cupboard of draft picks. So overall, we'll look at the draft picks. We'll give some analysis, and then we'll look at some of these trades. But off of first glance, what are your thoughts on this team?
I mean, this is one of those teams where you kind of just spend your picks and you're in-house money right away, right? Like you add Bijan to this team at 101. There's no questions in my mind. And again, never say never, because some Godfather offer could approach you, but I would probably just draft Bijan Robinson at 103. It's a super flex league. If you wanted to add CJ Stroud, or if Bryce Young slides because Gibbs goes 102, that would make some sense as well. Or you could just draft Jahmyr Gibbs and fill out your running back core. You have a lot of options with that pick, or you could trade it for a veteran. If somebody's like really low on Jonathan Taylor, you could maybe send the 103 and one of your second rounders and go after JT. And then at 201, 203, you're going to get probably some good running back prospects there. You don't really need to do anything at wide receiver. You could add Michael Mayer to this team if you have him fall to 201 as well. So a ton of flexibility. Your quarterback core, as it currently stands, is a little shaky depth-wise behind Deshaun Watson and Trey Lance being a little bit of a question mark. But I mean, I think between Sam Darnold, Jameis Winston, Taylor Heineke, Jacoby Brissett, you could probably piece together some QB3 production. And like I said, you could also just take CJ Stroud and solidify that position as well. So, I mean, this wide receiver core is got like 7 top 20 wide receivers in Dynasty in it. So that is the core part of your team, and you're obviously going to add the best running back in Dynasty to this team as well. So yeah, not a ton of weaknesses with this one. We can look at the trades here. He sends away Dak Prescott and Najee Harris in exchange for Trey Lance and Chris Olave. So I mean, at face value, I think security-wise, I prefer Dak Prescott. Just, he's got more long-term job security than a guy like Trey Lance. But you get younger at that position, which is important. And the difference between Najee Harris and Chris Olave is quite large.
Yeah, you're getting a big upgrade at wide receiver. And although, Lance's floor is a little bit lower than you'd want to project, I mean, the ceiling is that straight up, as much as I love Dak, like the ceiling is that he's valued over Dak straight up this time next year. So you're giving yourself more outs to paying off. And then worst case scenario, if there's a little bit of volatility, a little bit of a learning curve, that upgrade from Najee to Chris Olave is fine. So overall, you're taking some risk, but you've built up draft capital. You built up a roster to the point where I don't mind making that move. The other trade here, you sent away Tyreek Hill, Chris Godwin. You basically just got younger, Drake London and Marquise Brown. I'll tell you right now, I would prefer Drake London over Tyreek Hill, and Marquise Brown and Chris Godwin are pretty much a wash for me. So I would love your side of the deal in this trade.
Yeah, you're basically just aligning your winning window. There's an argument to be made that you would take Tyreek Hill over Drake London if you're in a winning window, which you were not. You said you took over this team as an orphan that was in last place. You offload a very, very productive receiver in Tyreek Hill, and you get yourself a guy that's going to be much more valuable long-term. So he made a couple trades to ensure that he kept the 101. I'm assuming this was one of them because Tyreek Hill was probably providing way too much actual points to his team. And I wish I could tank for the 101 with a team like this, because I guarantee I would have won like 3 games with this team during the season, and my max points for would have been way higher. He says the next step is probably to consolidate a bit, package together a couple of these elite wide receivers, maybe to try and tier up. Would you want to potentially do that? Go after Chase or Jefferson with some of these wide receivers?
Depends. If it's like, JMO, Traylon Burks, plus maybe.
Would you trade Olave and Jameson Williams right now for either of those guys?
A heartbeat.
Yeah, exactly. I would as well. If you give him Olave, who's a proven, looks like a young stud right now, Jameson Williams, the lottery ticket that everybody wants, and you get yourself Jefferson or Chase, I think that benefits your team more so in the long term, because again, we talk value over replacement of those guys in your lineup, plus just the long-term stability that they have as assets would also make some sense. Because if you had one of those guys, suddenly you have Deshaun Watson, CeeDee Lamb, Jamar Chase, for example, Bijan Robinson, you got some serious high-end caliber pieces to be able to work around and build the rest of your team around.
Yep. No, for sure. Overall, I mean, just stick to the process. You clearly have a lot of options, a lot of fluidity with each of those picks that you have. Play it by ear, man. People are willing to offer for your guys, so be it. You want to stick and pick, so be it. Not really much else here from a pure improvement standpoint. Just maybe, stapling Michael Mayer with one of those early 2s, stapling Bijan Robinson unless you get a grandfather offer with the 101, and carry on.
Yeah, exactly. Michael Mayer, definitely a big time target of mine with this team. So that's pretty much it. We can move on to the next team here, which is from Cusi. In a really tough spot, he said, after going for it all the last 3 years, he said, let me know what you boys think I should do and would love to hear some opinions. Okay, so I mean, we've been in this position before where you have a team that has, Josh Allen, Aaron Rodgers, Dalvin Cook, Zeke, Cordero Patterson, Stephon Diggs, Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams, Tyler Lockett, George Kittle, a lot of aging players on this team. My advice would be to get ahead of the curve, because you could definitely run it back with this team. I don't think it would be crazy to say that you could potentially win, even despite how rough of shape your running back core is in. Assuming Dalvin Cook and Zeke even get relevant volume next year, you could probably still win given the strength of your wide receivers. It's a 1 quarterback league, so you will have Josh Allen as the elite advantage quarterback and George Kittle as an elite advantage tight end. But if you can transition this before shit hits the fan and still get good value for these players, I'm looking to do that if it's possible, especially at running back to start. And if you can't get anything for your running backs, maybe you just sell off a couple pieces here and there. But what are your thoughts?
First thing I'm doing is whatever it takes, go get your own 2024 first and then blow it up.
Yeah.
That's what I'm doing.
That makes a lot of sense for sure. And maybe that should be the move that you make because if somebody's seeing when you do that after 3 trades of selling Diggs, Tyreek, and Adams, then everybody knows that you're trying to tank. But if you sell Dalvin Cook, Zeke, and Aaron Rodgers for your 2024 first, I don't think that would actually work. But you know what I mean? Like if it's the first move that you make, people will understand that you're starting to rebuild, and then they'll come calling for Tyreek Hill and Devontae Adams and Stephon Diggs. Maybe it takes one of those guys, because those guys are highly valuable to be able to get your own first back. But I'm assuming whoever has your first is probably in decent shape, and they're not necessarily like a full-fledged tanking team. I could be wrong about that, but again, you're in a spot where you kind of just want to gauge the market on each of your individual players. And if you can get good value for each guy, you take it. If you can't get good value, maybe you hold until you can. And then, throughout the course of the next calendar year or so, you're trying to slowly sign off these assets, get rid of these assets, and consolidate them into draft capital for 2024 and 2025, because that is probably your winning window. Like I said, if you want to be gutty about it, you said you've gone for it all in the last 3 years. You could do it one last hurrah if you wanted to. Maybe mid-season, you have to buy low on some like Jeff Wilson, Raheem Mostert types at running back just to get by at that position. But if I were you, if I can get the value right now, I would try and do it.
Blow it up. Yeah, I would agree. I mean, first of all, the first priority, if you can get your 2024 first, that's absolutely
2025 too, because he doesn't have that either.
Yeah, get your own first back. Even if you have to, strip it, down to the core, it's necessary. And then at that point, if you can get some more adequate draft capital added to this team for the long term, I mean, that's kind of just the nature of fantasy football, man. When you push your chips into the middle, and it paid off for you in 2020, got you second place in 2021 and 2022. Now you got to do your due diligence. Now you got to look yourself into the mirror and you got to say, hey, listen, do I want to risk going forward again and possibly losing, half of my value of the team that I currently have now? Or do I want to get ahead of the curve and get value right now to potentially, get back into a winning window by 2026? My personal advice, what I would be wanting to do, and Corey agrees with this too, like we were kind of saying, is I would want to get ahead of the curve while these guys still hold value.
Yeah, totally agree on that side. But again, what if let's paint this scenario, because it does happen sometimes where everybody in your league is I'm going to hold picks like they're, worth their weight in gold. And I'm not going to do shit. I'm not trading for any of these players. The most you're getting offered for Dalvin Cook is like 2/3 and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You do one last hurrah, let the team die of natural causes, maybe mid-season. And if you can sell pieces after you win a championship, you do that.
If it comes down to that, so be it. Hopefully the 2026 class is looking really good for you, because that's going to be the 101 by then, if that happens. But if you're forced to do it, the league market's just not giving you the appropriate value, and you want to just say, fuck it, let me see if I can get, one buy-in to cover my next 4 years I'm going to be needing to rebuild this team. So fucking be it.
Yeah, exactly. So we can move on to the next team here from Wyatt. 10-team, full PPR, tight end, super flex league. You guys can see the team on the screen there. In a 10-teamer, you got Josh Allen and Trey Lance as your main quarterbacks, Breece Hall, and then James Cook and Pacheco and some other fodder there at running back. Garrett Wilson, Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle, Jamison Williams, Calvin Ridley, Rashad Bateman at wide receiver. Main tight end there is David Njoku with Trey McBride sitting in the wings. 2023 picks include 103, 104, and 106. I don't know if he has his other picks, but if he does, then he probably has a 2, a 3, and a 4. And then he has all of his picks in 2024. So he says, do you think this team, his main question is, do you think this team is ready to compete in 2023? Or is this a 2024 window type of team? And I think the easiest way to evaluate this is you look at the running back position and you realize that your best running back is coming off of an ACL tear and you really don't have much behind him. So I would say just right off the bat that this team is probably more earmarks for 2024.
Yeah, no, I would agree as well. And realistically, you have, some nice wide receivers. You have the set tight end. You have, Allen and Lance at quarterback here. It's just, you're going to need one more year to probably add a couple running backs. But I do think by 2024, you can turn this into one of the top contenders.
Yeah, exactly. So at that 103 spot, are you looking to add a third quarterback? Were you looking for CJ Stroud or Bryce Young if he's there? Or, I mean, here's the other thing too, right? Because 101 and 102 are just 2 picks. We assume Bijan goes 101 in probably every single league in existence. 102 will be one of Bryce Young or Jahmyr Gibbs most likely. If 103 is Bryce Young or Gibbs on the board, do you just take whichever one falls to you? Or do you want to, if Gibbs is on the board and it's Gibbs versus Stroud, because you're not quite in a winning window yet, would you want to go with CJ Stroud to solidify your QB 2/3 spot? Or did you just take Gibbs there?
Personally, if it was me, if Bryce goes off the board, I'm trying to transition those picks into 2024. Personally here, you might be able to get, a late first this year and a mid to late projected first next year from a contender who wants to go after, Bryce Young or not in this scenario, because Bryce Young would go 102. They want to get a CJ Stroud. They want to get, a Jahmyr Gibbs, and they're willing to offer you, like I said, late first this year, the 110 and their 2024 first. In that scenario, because like we kind of said, this is a 2024 winning window. I'm just trying to, push my picks back into the future as much as possible.
I mean, the other thing you could do, because you have the 104 as well, is just take both of them. You take Gibbs at 103 and you take Stroud at 104, and you have a long-term trio of quarterbacks. You have another running back to go along with Breece Hall in the short term. 106, you grab yourself a wide receiver worth a damn, JSN, Jordan Addison, whoever it ends up being. And then suddenly in 2024, this team probably could could definitely compete. And then, of course, you have all of your picks in 2024 yourself. So if you have a house money, 106 in 2024 type of year, you might be adding another running back to this team also. So I think pretty early on, you're in a good spot. He says, who should I be targeting? I kind of just outlined Gibbs and Stroud makes sense, 103, 104. But I did talk about CJ Stroud specifically. If you're on the board with the CJ Stroud pick and you're getting good value in terms of 2024 picks, in terms of veteran quarterbacks potentially, some people might be lower on Kyler Murray, Deshaun Watson, Dak Prescott, whoever it ends up being. You might be able to transition that pick straight up for those guys. And then 106, I would imagine would probably be earmarked for a wide receiver prospect, just given how things shake out. But who knows? Maybe you go 103, you love one of the wide receivers. You absolutely love JSN. You absolutely love Jordan Addison or something. You grab Gibbs and one of those wide receivers, and then 106, you settle for Will Levis as your quarterback 3. I don't think that's a terrible strategy as well. So those are all the moves that I'd be making. Let's move on to Big Al's team. You guys can see it on the screen there. 10-team Superflex weighted PPR. Of course, that means half for running backs, full 4 wide receivers, 1.5 for tight ends. He said he started the tank mid-season. This is what his team is looking like right now. Justin Herbert and Aaron Rodgers as main quarterbacks, with Brock Purdy there as well. Jamal Williams, Jeff Wilson, not much to speak of. Isaiah Pacheco at running back. Debo, Drake London, Chase Claypool, not a ton at wide receiver as well. Greg Dulcich and Dawson Knox as his main tight ends. He has some IDP players as well, but we're not really going to focus on those guys. And then he has the 110, 202, 206, etc. there. Does not look like he has any of his 2024 picks, which looks like a bit of an issue, as well as his 2025 first round pick as well. So I would say that this is a pretty rough spot to be in.
Yeah.
Like, you realistically don't have a ton to be optimistic about. With a team that looks like this, I would be expecting you to have at least your own picks in 2024 and 2025, and then, make some necessary moves to be able to acquire more. But yeah, this is a pretty brutal spot. I'm not going to lie. And I'd be looking to sell pretty much everybody. And that includes Justin Herbert, Debo Samuel, and Drake London. Even though they look like building blocks for you, I would probably just get as many picks as you possibly can. If you can't get 2024 picks, people are wise to the Caleb Williams class and all that kind of stuff. Shoot for 2025. This one's going to take you a while. This is going to be a long-term project. It's not going to be turned around in the matter of 1 year. And your IDP players, sell them all too. Like the older guys, Donald, Levante, David, those guys. I don't know how valuable they are in this format, but I'd imagine they're pretty valuable just given how good of NFL players they are.
I would say you should blow this up. That might be disingenuous to the scale you'd need. You may need to fucking nuke this shit. You need to nuke this roster. Like, genuinely, all love, but there's a lot of work to be done. And we got to be brutally honest. We got to be, straight to the point with you. We got to be blunt. I'm not keeping a single player on this team. I am fully re-rolling into picks, because at this point, with how, down below the roster is, you need to take risks. You need to get as much capital as possible to potentially hit on some home runs, because that's the only way that you could really save it.
Yeah, and that would include this year's picks as well. The 110, yes. 202, 206, probably not even going to spend those. Like, if you can re-roll the 206 into a 2025 and a 2026 too, I would do it. If you can re-roll the 110 into a 2025 first, I would do it. If you can re-roll the 202, hopefully into a 2025 first or something, I would do that as well, because you don't need production on this team. You're going to be in rough shape for a while.
Yeah,
I would consider going after your own 2024 first as well, just knowing that we have a superstar prospect in that class in Caleb Williams, who would be a long-term building block for you. So I would say try and go after your own 2024 one. Maybe you have to use Debo, Drake London, or Justin Herbert to get there.
The thing is definitely go after your 2024 one, but even when that eventually materializes into Caleb Williams, I am selling that pick, because I don't think Caleb Williams on his own is going to be able to save you too. Like,
you're looking at like you're
2026, 2027. Like,
yeah,
I got to be honest.
One of the worst dynasty rosters I've seen in a little bit. So you're in a huge hole right now. So picks, and more picks. I mean, like, if nobody's giving you 3 1s for Justin Herbert, I mean, shoot for 2026 firsts. Like, don't even be married to 2023 or 2024. Like, you need to go after 2025, 2026 draft picks if that's possible in your league. And if it's not, you probably need to pay in for those years to be able to do it. So this is going to be a rough one. If you wanted to abandon this one and orphan it, I wouldn't blame you, because this is a pretty tough situation. So a lot of work to do there, Big Al. Hopefully things work out in the long term. Let's get in to the final team of the video here from Thomas. He says, hey guys, we did a dynasty decisions for him last year, helped me get runner up in his league last year. He said he's ready to compete, but just wants to know our thoughts and what we would do with his team. He said he's currently thinking about trading the 101 or 108, or the 109 plus some small draft capital or a bench player for somebody like Cooper Kupp. So he says, love the stuff. And this is the team. You guys can see it here. Russell Wilson, Trevor Lawrence, Jordan Love, and some other guys there at quarterback. Ramondre Stevenson, James Conner, Rashad Penny, Isaiah Pacheco, etc. at running back there. Justin Jefferson, Michael Pittman, Gabe Davis, Christian Kirk, Jahan Dotson at wide receiver. Freiermuth, Dalton Schultz at tight end. Also has 3 picks in the first round in 2023. Has, by the looks of it, all of his future picks except a couple extra 2s and 3s here in 2024. So his 2023 picks, he has the 101. He's basically just put in Bijan Robinson as the target. Understandable. Again, 108, 109. He said he's potentially looking to transition into Cooper Kupp. Given his current team state, are you looking to do something like that? Or are you looking maybe at something a little bit more sustainable long-term? Do you think he's ready to push things into the middle?
3 wide receiver start league. You're going to have Jefferson, Pittman, Cooper Kupp as your main 3 wide receivers. You use that other pick on another wide receiver, and you still have, at running back, Javonte Williams, Ramondre Stevenson, and then Bijan Robinson. I think you can compete with this
I don't
team.
think. Oh yeah, I guess he has IR. Yeah, he has
and
Devontae
Calvin
Williams
Ridley
on his IR, and Calvin Ridley on his IR as well. So yeah, I mean, Bijan, Ramondre are going to be your top 2 running backs. Not a ton of depth there, but you have some 0 RB guys. Russell Wilson, Trevor Lawrence, etc. is not the greatest quarterback core I've ever seen, but you make up for it if you have a stud wide receiver core like that. And obviously Bijan and Ramondre should be great running backs for you.
Yeah, I'm willing to try to compete with this team. I think like you add Cooper Kupp, you have, a 4 stack at wide receiver, especially that you're comfortable with. You're going to have 3 main running backs with Ramondre, Bijan, and Javonte. And then, a couple of nice fodder pieces that can fill in the bye weeks. James Robinson or James Conner, Deontay Foreman, potentially, Isaiah Pacheco there. Although I wouldn't blame you if you wanted to try to sell high on him after the playoffs. And then at quarterback, you need some to break right there. I would say that would be your biggest weakness comparatively going into the year. You have Trevor Lawrence as your locked-in one, but, you got some upside at least. Maybe Sean Payton's able to help out with Russell Wilson. You still got a guy like Jordan Love who should be a starter. And then obviously, the guy I'm looking to potentially flip and maybe get some sustainability would be Brock Purdy. So I think you're in a good spot. A couple, transitions, maybe you get a couple guys that can help you from a production standpoint. Cooper Kupp's going to be one of those main guys. I do think that you can compete to be, a top 3-ish level team in your league if things break right for sure.
Yeah, I'd say at face value, 108 or 109 plus smaller draft capital or a bench player. Like if you take the 108 and you add in Isaiah Pacheco and Brock Purdy, and that gets it done for Cooper Kupp, I think that's an easy move to make. And the other thing too is like filling out your depth at running back could be quite easy in this class, because let's say you only move one of those first round picks, the other one could be earmarked for a Zach Charbonnet type or something like that. Whoever ends up getting good draft capital at the 201, again, you could also add another running back with decent draft capital. 3rd and 4th round, just dart throws galore at that position. Grab yourself as many running backs late in the draft as you can. And for the most part, you should be, set to go with Bijan, Ramondre, and Javonte as your top guys to go along with all the depth that you build out at quarterback. You're not really in a position to be able to add a great quarterback, which is the only unfortunate part about this team. Maybe somebody buys into the Russell Wilson, Sean Payton narrative, and you can transition Russell Wilson plus the 108 and the 109 into an elite quarterback or something like that. That might be the only way you can get there, but I'd imagine most people are skeptical on Russell Wilson, so you're probably best off just holding him.
Yep. No, I agree there. Overall, though, go get Cooper Kupp, try to compete. You're in a really good spot there, and you still have a ton of draft capital to work with, even for your own right. As a competing team, having all of your future capital picks, having the 201 as well this year, you could easily turn this into a really good contender within the next couple of years for sure, or the next year period.
Yeah, exactly. So, that is the end of the video. Again, if you guys want to be part of future episodes here of Dynasty Decisions, check out the Patreon. The priority goes to those people over there that support us. We really appreciate them. And then, of course, if you want to submit free teams, all submissions from now on, we've previously been taking submissions via Twitter, Discord, FSE, Twitter, etc. Try and funnel them through our email address, which is in the link in the description down below. It'll say, Dynasty Decisions submissions here. Just specify if you're a patron or not, and we will get you into the proper queues and get you ready. Just a little bit organization factor wise, a little easier for us. And of course, submit it in an Excel format or something like that, as you guys have seen on the screen of these videos. So appreciate you guys for sticking around to the end. If you made it here, if you did, leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you are new. Peace out, and we'll talk to you soon.
Wire me the money.